From burying grounds whose bounds are rumored to be roamed by ghostly soldiers on moonlit nights, to actual pet cemeteries where the lingering spirits of dearly departed companions are supposedly able to enjoy the afterlife right alongside the souls of their owners. Are you ready for our 5th list of picks for some of the most haunted graveyards in the United States? Number 5. Holy Rood Cemetery. Holy Rood Cemetery, which is located off of Wisconsin Avenue Northwest at the southern end of Glover Park out of Georgetown in Washington, D.C., is a prominent final resting place containing around 7,000 graves, perhaps 1,000 or so of which belong to freed and enslaved African Americans, and it's actually recognized for being the burying grounds with possibly the best documented slave records in the whole of the district. Historically, in 1832, what was originally called the Trinity Church Upper Graveyard was established under the Holy Trinity Catholic Church. From 1850 to 1870, the site was enlarged significantly and was re-established as the Holy Rood Cemetery, with rood being an Old English word for cross, and in 1901, original cemetery walls were torn down in favor of new ones, while a number of trees that had kind of overgrown things were removed to keep their root systems from disturbing grave sites, or from their limbs falling dangerously in storms. Holy Rood Cemetery would remain active from the mid-19th to early 20th centuries. In 1915, the last cemetery lot was sold off. By the 1990s, very few burials were still taking place in the yard, and in more recent years, the expanse has become overgrown again and much in need of a restoration. In 2018, Georgetown University and Holy Trinity Catholic Church would announce their plans both for the restoration of the yard as a whole and also for the construction of the Holy Trinity Columbarium, which by 2019 would be completed, and on November 2nd of the same year would welcome its first entombment. Holy Rood Cemetery remains open into the present, with its columbarium still active and in use, though as mentioned, its grounds are in need of further restorations. And while priority interments are given to Holy Trinity parishioners, to Georgetown alumni, and to ancestors of those already buried on site, others are welcome to purchase plots, which are still readily available. Simply put, Holy Rood grounds are believed to be haunted by the lingering spirits of their many interments, which some believe have become restless as their yard has been allowed to decay. And those braving this weathered old graveyard have reported orbs and strange forms captured in the backgrounds of photography and video, extreme cold spots felt in adverse weather, and disembodied footsteps and voices detected from vacant spaces. Several informal investigations of the expanse have yielded high EMF levels, chilling EVPs, and odd anomalies detected on thermal equipment, while others have described the feelings of being watched, of being followed, or even of being brushed up against by someone or something unseen. Lastly, a host of full-bodied apparitions, all in clothing spanning the ages, have been observed wandering about, many appearing lost, confused, or even angered at the state of their final resting places. Number 4. The Hartsdale Pet Cemetery. The Hartsdale Pet Cemetery, or the Hartsdale Canine Cemetery, which is located off of North Central Park Avenue out of Hartsdale, New York, is a cherished and iconic final resting place for furry friends everywhere that's actually recognized as America's largest and oldest pet graveyard. Historically, in 1896, the Hartsdale Pet Cemetery was founded to address the growing need for a proper final resting place for beloved pets of New York, as animal burials weren't actually permitted within city bounds, and subsequently, veterinarian Dr. Samuel Johnson would partner with one Emily Berthet, who would donate 5 acres of land for use in this endeavor. Initially, Dr. Johnson's practice would start small, with him providing as comfortable an environment for end-of-life services as possible. However, following word spreading of Johnson's limitless kindness, hundreds of requests for pet burials would pour in, and on May 14th of 1914, the pet cemetery was officially incorporated. In 1923, the War Dog Memorial, which features a bronze German Shepherd wearing a blanket with a Red Cross insignia, was established, and commemorates man's most faithful friend for the valiant services rendered in the World War 1914 to 1918. Notably, a ceremony revolving around the honoring of service dogs is held on site every June. More recently, in 2012, Hartsdale was added to the National Register of Historic Places, marking it as our first and only animal burial ground to receive such an honors. In the present, Hartsdale remains open to the public and holds the remains of over 70,000 pets, while boasting around 7,000 memorials. And with plentiful space for future interments, it'll likely continue on as an active graveyard into the foreseeable future. Oh, and we'd feel remiss not mentioning that due to New York law, which states humans should always be given the option to be buried next to their animal companions, around 800 human bodies lie interred across the expanse as well. Not surprisingly, the whole of Hartsdale grounds are rumored to be haunted by the spirits of both their animals and human interments, and those braving the cemetery have reported a range of supernatural phenomena, including abnormal cold patches and odd breezes that pick up on otherwise clear days, the feelings of being watched or being brushed up against by something unseen, and by some accounts, something furry, and both orbs and spooklights that are visible to the naked eye and also often captured in photography or video. Over its lengthy existence, those visiting this aged pet cemetery have told of fleeting glimpses of cats, dogs, or of other animals that are usually just spied out of the peripheral, and that are always gone upon second inspection, while those who actually have family pets interred locally have told of touching encounters with the specific spirits of lost loved ones. Lastly, the unidentified apparitions of a man and of his dog have been observed together right around sunset, enjoying their eternities in the only way that makes sense to them, by laughing, running, and playing until they fade from sight. Number 3. The Mare Island Cemetery. The Mare Island Cemetery, which is located off of Imhoff Road on the Mare Island Shoreline Heritage Preserve out of Vallejo, California, is an iconic burying grounds claiming the titles of being both the oldest naval cemetery in the state and actually of being the first of such cemeteries established across the whole of the Pacific. Historically, on January 4th of 1853, the Navy would purchase 956 acres of Mare Island for use in its shipyard. In 1854, shipbuilding operations would commence, and in 1856, burials at our current cemetery in question would begin, with its first interment being that of one George Dowd, who'd perished aboard the USS Massachusetts, and who was buried the following day through a ceremony officiated under one Reverend Mr. Hunt out of San Francisco. The Mare Island Cemetery would officially close its gates on November 1st of 1921, though notably, a number of burials would still transpire across its plots, and through World War II, an explosion on the island, which was later determined to be the work of German saboteurs, would result in the deaths of several present, whose bodies were subsequently laid to rest within the yard. More recently, in 1975, this weathered graveyard would be listed on the National Register of Historic Places as part of the Mare Island Naval Ammunition Depot Historic District. In the present, access to this aged burying grounds is limited, with its gates only opened on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and with the Mare Island Historic Park Foundation offering private tours by reservation only. Chillingly, the whole of this place of final rest has long been surrounded in stories of supernatural encounters, and those who have braved its bounds have reported disembodied voices and whispers that flit on the winds, extreme cold patches detected in adverse weather, and a general and constant eerie feeling or vibe. Several informal investigations of the expanse have yielded the usual, being EMF fluctuations, EVPs, abnormal battery death rates, and orbs or strange forms captured in photography and video. A ghost in a sailor's uniform has been observed wandering the cemetery's trails, and others have described feeling as if they're always being watched, followed, or even wandering amongst multiple presences unseen. Mare Island's most famous legend by far intertwines with actual history to tell the story of one Lucy Lawson, who, in 1875, was convicted for paying a man $50 to murder her husband, who by some accounts was highly abusive and controlling. While initially Lucy was sentenced to hang, she was actually eventually pardoned, after which she would take a job with the prominent Commodore Stacy Potts family and would move with them to Mare Island. After serving the family for 35 years, Lucy would pass on and would be laid to rest right within our cherished boneyard. And to date, many have told of encounters with her full-bodied apparition, which usually bears a saddened look upon her face. Number 2. Greenwood Cemetery. Greenwood Cemetery, which is located off of Greenwood Street out of Orlando, Florida, is an iconic and popular burying grounds that's actually recognized as the oldest graveyard in the whole of its aged and sweeping city. Historically, predating the late 19th century, the region and city would offer no permanent burial locations, leading to a host of lost graves and to an overall confusion. However, in 1880, and under the combined efforts of 8 Orlando locals, 26 acres would be acquired for the purpose of the creation of an Orlando cemetery. In 1915, this first yard would be reofficiated as Greenwood Cemetery instead, following requests solidified by 2 of its founders, and over subsequent years, additional adjacent lands were purchased and added to the yard, expanding its bounds greatly. In 1991, the 19-acre Greenwood urban wetlands would be welcomed to the site, while following the tragic 2016 Pulse nightclub shooting, plots would be reserved. Additionally included at Greenwood are sections dedicated to Confederate, to Union, to Spanish-American War, and to World War I and II veterans, as well as a number of historical memorials. In the present, Greenwood is owned and operated by the city and continues to offer end-of-life services alongside tours of its grounds, with features surrounding historic and famous interments. Since shortly after the time of its formation, Greenwood Cemetery has seemingly always acted as a birthing grounds for all manner of ghost story, and over the years, both staff and visitors braving it have reported disembodied voices, laughter, and music, strange smells of food, cologne, or perfume without source, and encounters with apparitions that float eerily and aimlessly above the ground after dark. A more famous Greenwood legend intertwines with actual history to tell of Fred Weeks, who lived through the turn of the 20th century, who purchased land just off of cemetery grounds, and who arrived to find the plot he'd procured was nothing more than a useless swamp, and that the 3 English attorneys who'd sold the tract to him had essentially ripped him off. Sadly, resulting from this controversy, Weeks' wife would leave him, she would take his children, and eventually, he would die alone, obsessing over the scam that ruined his life until his last breath. The spirit of poor old Fred has been observed not far from his family's mausoleum and is usually donning a look of utmost detest. One especially nightmare-inducing segment of Greenwood is without a doubt Babyland, where, you guessed it, children under the age of 5 were interred, and visitors to the area, big shocker here, have reported hearing creepy little giggles, phantom melodies from a child's music box, small footsteps that circle lone walkers, and the common sensations of chilled, tiny little hands tugging at one's clothing. The Wilmot family, who built a name for themselves locally through the turn of the 19th century, boasts a mausoleum at the highest point of this weathered burying grounds. The only mausoleum, in fact, other than the Weeks' tomb. And near it, many have told of a spectral male figure in old military garb, who appears at the entrance for moments to gaze off into the horizon before fading away. Lastly, through its various veterans sections, especially near memorials honoring actual Orlando fighters, visitors often encounter ghostly military personnel, most of whom that, even from beyond, seem to be enjoying some well-deserved R&R stateside. Number 1. The Nashville City Cemetery. The Nashville City Cemetery, which is located off of 4th Avenue South out of downtown Nashville, Tennessee, is an iconic burying grounds boasting the title of being the oldest continuously operated public cemetery across its aged city, that's recognized for its interment of a number of Nashville's most prominent historical figures. Historically, on March 9th of 1820, the mayor and aldermen of Nashville would make purchase of 4 acres from local tavern keeper and land speculator Richard Cross for the purpose of the creation of a new cemetery, which would open on January 1st of 1822. Within its first 2 decades of operation, this cemetery would make 8 additional land purchases, and would acquire plots on which it would expand up to its current 27 acres. And by 1850, the yard would hold the remains of over 11,000 people from all walks of life, cultures, and regions. In 1878, due to an outbreak of diphtheria which was believed to have originated from the cemetery, the expanse would be closed to future interments with the exception of already existing plot owners, a rule which actually still stands true to this day. Over its many years, a range of efforts targeted at maintaining the Nashville City Cemetery have been put in place, including during one significant 1958 display in which Mayor West actually pressured City Council to appropriate $75,000 for the property's full restoration, as well as for the installation of new light poles and various other upgrades. In the present, this weathered yard holds the remains of around 22,000 and stands primarily now as an outdoor museum while offering guided tours and even accommodating the occasional burial, on long-term reservation of course. alongside all of your standard creepy phenomena that usually transpires within haunted old boneyards, such as extreme cold patches felt in adverse weather, disembodied footsteps and voices, and the feelings of being watched or being surrounded by presences unseen. Over its extensive existence, Nashville City has been made infamous through the persistence of two popular local legends that both actually intertwine with real history. The first of these tales associates itself to Charles Dickinson, the renowned duelist and attorney who, in 1806, bled to death resulting from a duel with Andrew Jackson, the same Andrew Jackson who actually went on to become president of the US afterwards. While Charles was initially laid to rest at his family's plantation, his remains were eventually in 2010 moved to Nashville City Cemetery for safer keeping, and near his headstone, many have reported feeling cold chills on hot days, or taps on the shoulder courtesy of an invisible hand, and the alarming sensation of hot breath on the back of the neck has even been detected. The yard's second legend revolves around a headstone recognized as Suicide Rock, which sits towards the front of the expanse and marks the final resting place of 21-year-old Anne Rawlings Sanders, who, on March 30th of 1836, ran from her home preceding a fight with her husband and later drowned herself in the Cumberland in despair. Subsequently, Anne's husband would pull a boulder from the river and would place it atop her grave as a marker, and would fasten a lantern to it, as his wife had been scared of the dark. And while it's claimed now that this rock rests atop the grave of another Rawlins family member and not Anne specifically anymore, this hasn't stopped reports of sightings of Anne's apparition, who usually manifests after dark, sitting atop her rock with her head in her hands. Additionally, a male ghost suspected to be that of Anne's husband has been known to appear occasionally as well, and always walks directly to her grave where he lights her lantern before fading away. Coupling its intriguing and lengthy history with such an impressive assortment of associated local legends and purported encounters with the unknown, we felt the Nashville City Cemetery was the perfect choice as this list's most haunted graveyard in the United States. Thanks for joining us for our 5th list of picks for some of the most haunted graveyards in the US. If you enjoyed hearing our histories and ghost stories, subscribe to our channel, like this upload, and share us with anyone you think could use a good scare. We'll catch you all next time.